Hey buddy, it's Peter, and this is a 2018 Zero SR motorcycle. It's a fully electric motorcycle, and we're gonna look at it in the context of 2024. I don't usually review used motorcycles, but to be very blunt, leaving Harley and their live wire out of this, there aren't many better, in fact, there aren't any better electric bikes than this from any of the mainstream competitors, and this is 2018. So we're going to talk about what 2018 looked like in the EV world to 2024, and we're going to go through this bike in detail because with this one being used and extremely low kilometers, it brings the price down to a competitive point where you can consider an electric motorcycle for pretty much price parity with a gas motorcycle, and that may or may not be the right thing for you. Now again, this isn't about electric motorcycles better, are electric motorcycles better or worse? This is just an option, and the reality is in the car world, we've reached the point where in general you can replace a gas car with an electric car. Now I wouldn't say you can do that with the truck world, but a little commuter car, no problem. So a little commuter bike, how come this is the only one really only mainstream type option out there? We're gonna talk about all that and more, but before we go too far, this is available for sale right now at McLean Sports. They have a whole bunch of new bikes here, Suzuki, KTM, Yamaha, all kinds of stuff, but they also carry used stuff and a lot of it. So you can see all kinds of things like a Ural, which is an old like Russian style bike with a sidecar. They have electric bikes and everything in between. So check them out if you're in Fredericton, New Brunswick, anywhere in New Brunswick, anywhere in the Maritimes, it's worth coming out to see these guys. And I wanna thank them for giving me access to their entire product line. Let's get going with this review. All right, now I want to set the stage because I used to be considered, especially in 2018 through beyond that, I used to be considered an expert in electric vehicles, and I have a pretty good memory of what electric vehicles were like in 2018. In fact, let's just take Kia as an example. Kia and Hyundai, a great example of a mainstream brand, leaving Tesla out. This is very much the Tesla of motorcycles, except that Tesla's so much a software company. Software is not super impressive on this. This is more mainstream-ish. But Kia, mainstream brand. They had the Kia Soul EV in 2018. It had just been updated to a range of 179 kilometers, up from about 150 or so. So around 180 or so for 150 or so. This thing in 2018 had more range than that, close to 200, 193 or so kilometers of range. So Kia today makes a huge 3-row SUV that gets basically, it's rated for just under 500 kilometers range, but it can get over 500 kilometers range in great weather, and that's where things have gone. All their smaller cars, I mean, Kias and Hyundais, that, you know, some of them touch on 600 kilometers in real world driving, so for most people, that can replace a regular car. This thing can replace a regular naked bike for some people's riding and many people's riding. The fault this one has is still the fault that a lot of 2018 EVs have, is that it takes a little while to charge, but that may or may not matter to you in this particular video. You still got great performance, which does not exist in the mainstream market with EV motorcycles. So we're gonna go through this bike bit by bit by bit, talk about what it is, why it works great, what's kind of unique about it, and we're gonna look at the dash, we're gonna talk about range, we're gonna talk about charging time, and we're gonna see if it's right for you, because again, one of the biggest barriers to EVs has always been price. This one's got like 3,000 some odd kilometers, so it's kind of new as far as kilometers go, and it certainly has potential in the performance area to compete with your gas motorcycle. So let's start at the front like we always do, work our way around the bike. So whenever I review any motorcycle, I always start at the front wheel and we start talking about how the manufacturer's intent can clearly be shown from the front wheel. Now again, this one's not perfectly detailed up yet, so ignore some of the dirt on it. We can get that cleaned up for sale, but I wanted to get it before it did sell. So what you have here is a 110 by 17 inch, so it's still a 17-inch diameter wheel, which is what you have on basically every sport bike, but most motorcycles with this style of tire are a 120. Something like, the Yamaha R3 might have a 110, Kawasaki's Ninja 400, Ninja 500 have a 110, so it's a little bit narrower tire. Now, I think this is a move that is done on this bike for different reasons than it would be on a gas bike. On some of the gas bikes, sure, efficiency is a piece of it, but really a narrower tire can help that flickability kind of feel, that lightweight kind of flickability kind of feel. This is not really, in my mind, competitive with a Ninja 400, 500. It's more like, let's say, the Suzuki SV650, the Z 650 from Kawasaki. As far as acceleration and general performance, I think that's kind of what you're looking at, and the weight would sort of fit in that ballpark as well. We'll talk about that in a second. So what you have here is a little bit narrower front tire than you have, just like a little bit narrower, but again, it's going to feel and look normal. You have a very KTM style brake disc mounted to the wheel here. That's KTM does that on some of their bikes still to this day in 2024. And of course, large single brake caliper on there, and it's not a dual caliper, which is what you would have on some of the 650cc bikes. So it kind of blends that gap from those 400, 500cc as far as like braking here and wheel. But again, some of that acceleration is going to be far, far greater on this bike than those, which again is kind of like an electric car. You know, what something may be competitive, like, you know, a Tesla, for instance, is competitive with a Porsche in acceleration, but it's really kind of a small SUV or a small sedan in other ways. So the other thing you're going to see here is upside down forks. Upside down forks are good for a lot of reasons. First of all, it lowers the unsprung weight. That's going to help with handling. That's a good thing. It also allows some adjustability, and it also gives you a little bit more stiffness up top, which is kind of nice to have. We're going to look a little bit back from here before we go look at the battery area. I just want to show you a couple things that are kind of unique about an electric bike that are kind of nice. Taking a look behind the wheel, so sort of where that wheel hits, you can see you've got a short fender here that's done for style and aerodynamics. They do that on some bikes, but a lot of people say, oh, I hate that because it allows all the grime and junk to get into my whatever is there on the bike. Sometimes it's a radiator, sometimes it's other things. You can see here, it's all clean. It's all protected, it's all done. So it doesn't matter that your tire's spraying junk up there because you just wipe it clean and you're good to go. One of the advantages with a bike like this without the radiator is that you just simply have a clean frontal area. That's gonna help a little bit with aerodynamics, but it's also gonna help with just generally keeping the bike clean. So what we see in an electric motorcycle when we look at this area, generally everybody seems to agree at this point on what you do. You put the battery pack in here. That's going to be the weight of the motorcycle. Again, on a regular motorcycle, you want the weight forward and low. So you can see the battery pack sort of stops up here and drops right down to the bottom of the bike here. This here is your motor. That's what actually drives the wheel. We'll show you that from the other side in a second here. But the weight is forward and low. So if your battery pack ends here, what is this up here? Well, most motorcycles are used to having a tank. You need something for your legs to grip, and this works well. We're going to show you what it looks like with me sitting on the bike in a second. But what that does is actually gives you an actual storage space, so that's kind of nice to have. And then, of course, you've got a lot of things going on here. One of the cool things there is you can see this large frame area. It's got the hole through there, so you can sort of see right through here. If you had to plug this bike in, you could store your cord in there. Some people do that, but even just running the cord through from one side to the other, you can plug it in. It does plug into a regular 110 outlet. It does not have a quick charging thing. We're going to talk charging times in a second. Let me just jump on the bike. Actually, we'll show you one more thing. Check out the rear swing arm there. All clean look there as well, but just kind of some cool styling in there. So we'll talk rear tire in a second, but let's talk about sitting on this and charge times. So stepping back just so you can sort of see some perspective here. I'm about 6 feet tall, proportional 6-footer, so same inseam as the average 6-footer. You can see it's not a huge bike, nice and short, nice and compact. It does have a rear seat. It's not a great one, we'll show you that in a second here, but for a single rider, it's pretty comfortable and very familiar to a typical, like I said, the 650-ish class feeling here. You have a slight lean forward, which is gonna help with the wind on you, but it's not an aggressive sport bike. My legs tuck in here, but you can see if I was leaning over, I've really got a strong angle or strong piece here to use my legs to pull up. Again, as 6 feet tall, if you're much taller than me, you can still fit a lot of leg up there, you know, several inches taller in just the legs than me. So you can fit a larger person on here comfortably. The seat's pretty comfortable to me, seat's fine. Weird things that go on. No clutch lever, no nothing on that side at all. You've got your brake lever on the handle here. You've got your brake lever on the foot, and that's all you've got for control. So no lever over here. We'll show you the actual controls later. So let's talk charge time. If this is comfortable, sort of an around town type naked bike, charge time is where this bike falls short. And it may or may not matter to you when we talk about actual motorcycles. So charge time on this with a regular plug into a regular outlet, which is a good thing, you can just plug it in anywhere, is about 10 hours. So if you go for a couple hour ride, that kind of thing, you're gonna be charging it for 7-8 hours, whatever it's gonna be. But 10 hours is gonna be your charge time. Now you can get an accessory here that loses the storage in this area. And to be very frank, I'm not sure how to open the storage. Maybe that storage was an option. My dad used to have this exact same bike. It did have storage. We'll have to dig into this. Maybe I'm misreading this one, but this is hollow right now. So you can get a charge pack which has a typical like level 2 charging connection here, so the J1782 or something like that. I did that wrong. Anyways, I can see it in my head, but I can't say it. Anyways, when you have the regular home charging thing, it increases the charge time this to 2.5 hours, which is still pretty bad. When you consider what that can do. Like current day right now, a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon plug-in hybrid has a massive battery, takes up the entire rear seat. It gives you the Jeep like 21 miles of range, so 30 some odd 40 kilometers of range roughly. That takes 2 hours with the same plug. So charge times are not great on this. You need the adapter, but if you just kind of ride casually, you go for a couple hours and you leave it sit for 10 hours again, which is what a lot of people do with their naked bikes, going to commute, going to do that kind of stuff. This thing's perfectly fine. And again, range started out, rated range 193-ish kilometers. The way you drive is going to affect that, but you're going to get your 150, you're going to get your 130, you know, no matter how you drive. So you're going to get your commute in, you're going to do your, you know, long range. And again, it's probably going to get a little bit more of that 130, but again, you're not going to drive that aggressive. Maybe you will. So charge time's kind of a letdown. Range, pretty good, especially when you consider that leading edge electric motorcycles are getting like 60, 70, and don't have anywhere near the speed of this right now from the mainstream manufacturers. And this is a 2018, so why haven't we seen better? That's a question we'll get to in a second. Let's continue around the bike and take a look at the dash as well. So before we get to the rear tire, you can see here you do have the rear suspension shock. It is adjustable. There's lots of adjustment in there as well. So front and rear fully adjustable shocks, which is kind of nice to have. Again, everything's tucked forward for weight purposes. You can sort of see that piggyback shock kind of on your angle. It's right behind the rear foot peg there. But, you know, quality stuff. So you've got good stuff there. On the back end here, again, a little bit unfamiliar to the typical gasoline motorcyclist in this class. This is a 140 series tire. So again, same size, something like a Ninja 500-ish. But again, I think the performance, certainly the acceleration outperforms. Zero talks about their acceleration being better than a Porsche 911. Now that gives a pretty wide range. There's a lot of Porsche 911s out there, and that was a 2018 claim. But again, acceleration's very good. One thing I find with this tire is when I've been riding this bike, and I've ridden it a lot, because like I said, my dad used to own it, is I found that you ran more risk of slipping the tire than you ran the risk of wheeling the bike. It would just slip a little bit. It has pretty good control of that kind of thing, but when you put it in sport mode, it can slip just a touch. Now, not scary slip, like again, you're cranking it from stop sign, but that's where you sort of think it didn't really wheelie, and I wonder if a little bit wider tire, maybe a stickier tire might make a difference. But a 140, again, similar to something like a Ninja 500, not something you typically see on a bike with this kind of acceleration. So again, should help with the handling. As far as handling, it's kind of a middle of the line handling bike in this area. There are better handling bikes, but you know, certainly no issues with it. It's going to be, certainly for a street handling bike, it's going to be just fine. So taking a look at the driveline side of the bike, this is where you see something that's interesting to me. You do have a very large sort of wheel here, and you have a belt drive. So what you have is no chain maintenance, no oil changes, no, you know, there's just so much less maintenance on this. So for the average weekend rider who's gonna go out for an hour or two and come in and leave it for a long time, you're not having to worry about oiling a chain, you're not having to worry about, you know, valve adjustments and oil changes and that kind of thing. There's some general maintenance you still have to do with this bike, but there's less, and that's typical of an EV. And I really like the idea of clean. I mean, I'm always cleaning my wheel, because my wheel, I have gold wheels on my bike, and it always shows the grease from the chain, that kind of thing. Now maybe that's my issue for the way I'm oiling it, but maintenance free right there with your belt drive. And again, no gears on electric, almost every electric car and this electric motorcycle, no gears to change. So simple drive, just pin it and go. Let's look at the controls on this bike, because there's some familiarity and some differences. So let's do that right now. So left side handlebar here, just can see out to the edge right there like that. We're really looking at the controls here. So pretty typical motorcycle stuff, and a lot of things I really like. You have your flash to pass trigger that's right there and sort of easily grabbable there. You have your high beam, your low beam. I do like having hazard lights on a motorcycle, hazard lights or four-way flashers, whatever you want to call them. I like having them, it's right there. Signal light and horn, feels all the same, typical motorcycle stuff, horn right there. So typical motorcycle controls here, but what you miss, of course, is that clutch. Now, I spent a lot of time time in this class of motorcycle talking about the slipper and assist clutch, and the slipper feature especially allows you to have that lightweight, or sorry, that assist feature allows you to have that really lightweight clutch pull. That makes a bike like this really nice in town. Now, having no clutch pull actually makes this a great in-town bike, and that's also a good way to extend your mileage. The enemy of range on an EV, and in a lot of vehicles, enemy of range is speed. So if you're zipping around town, country roads, that kind of thing, you're gonna do really well with your mileage. And I've gone out with my dad for 2.5, 3 hours easily on this bike in the past, and you know, he still had plenty of charge, no range anxiety at all for a typical motorcycling type commute. So we're going to keep this view here. We're going to show you the dash as we come across. We'll get back to that in a second. And we just want to show you one more thing over on the throttle side. So there is a brake lever out there. We have to show you that brake lever. We'll adjust that in a second. You have a kill switch right here, just like a regular motorcycle, and then you have a mode button here. So there's an eco mode, there's a sport mode, and there's a custom mode. So you can sort of customize things up. We're going to show you the dash and how that works right now. All right, now I want you to keep in mind 2018, right? This is not TFT displays, it's not 2024, so a decent dash here, very, very legible in here. You've got your sort of adjustment button here and select button there. It's ADJ here and SEL there, so adjustment selection. Down low, the angle of the camera is a little bit tough to see some of the warning lights in there. I've got the kill switch off right now, so nothing we can do. If I turn the kill switch on and spin the throttle, it will go, although it should stay the way it is with the kickstand down. You can see the mileage on this, 3836, so 3,836 kilometers. Keep in mind, a lot of these bikes can be found used with low kilometers because people who bought them originally were using it for their shorter trips. And again, you know, a lot of people just don't ride a ton. And somebody who doesn't ride a ton, it is possible to find these with lower kilometers. So you can see a couple things here. I'm gonna try to zoom in. Well, we'll just leave it where it is for now. Let's see the trip 1, so number A right there. We're gonna select that. You can go through, oh, how do I do this again? It's been a while. Trip 1, there's your range, and your there's an error, that's a 45, that's not a big deal. RPMs, it actually shows you RPMs there, and trip 1. So we're gonna go down to the bottom here, and there's your average efficiency, so it's in watt hours per kilometer. Now again, keep in mind, this can really change. It shows you outside temperature, lifetime, watt hour, thing, and then you have a sort of instant range there. So you can cycle through those kind of things right there. So basically efficiency, you don't talk about fuel efficiency, you talk about things a little different. This is about 87% battery, so you can always see not just a bar graph with the battery, but your actual percentage. It's big out there for you, so you don't have any range anxiety. And you can see right now it's in the eco mode. So I'm going to switch the eco mode to the custom mode and down to the sport modes. So you've got all 3 modes there. And then there's also output and regeneration right here. So we'll try to zoom into that for just a second here, see if I can do this right. There we go. Output and regeneration. You can see it sort of flickering just the way it interacts with the screen. Oh, I'm getting a little bit shaky here. There is a little bar graph in here that shows you when you're regenerating as you're slowing and braking and as you're putting out power. So again, just like a modern EV, you do have the ability to sort of regenerate some electricity and do everything else. This is a very, very good bike. When you talk about range, when you talk about features, when you talk about all the information here, it blows away anything from 2024, which is kind of interesting considering this is a 2018. Let's show you a couple other things here. While we're zoomed in this close, we're going to show you the very top of the fork tube there. Identical on both sides, show a fork, so you have the, let's see if I can get the other one in focus a little bit. Yeah, a little hard to read there, but same sort of adjustments there on the top end, you have adjustments on the bottom end as well. So fully adjustable forks in there. And then as we come out a little bit, you can see the handlebar here. I appreciate the handlebar instead of the clip-ons. You can see that the previous owner had a, you know, maybe a GPS or another device mounted here, but just simply having the handlebar, you can mount your phone, you can do various things to keep things plugged in if you wanted to. Just a couple unique things I didn't point out. They may have been in the shop before, but you can see you have a really unique kickstand here. That's an aluminum kickstand, big foot on it, a little different style. Again, they're trying to keep some of that weight low in this bike because that battery is heavy. Weight is 480-ish pounds, 80 something, something like that. It's very competitive with a typical 600 type bike. As we go up, you can see that little spot right there. The center of your screen or so is where you can plug the bike in. And we did talk about the seat. We were going to talk about that a little bit more. Let's just zoom out a little bit there. The issue I have with the seat is, like a lot of naked and sport bikes, you don't have a ton of rear seat space. Now, most of them are narrower and kind of long. This one's got the width, but it does seem to stop shorter to me when you consider that the curvature here. Front seat is very comfortable for the rider, but you also have some nice things down here for gripping the bike in the corner. The bike wraps around, you have the padding down here, so you can really get a good grip there, as well as pulling up on the tank. You can see that sharp line there, so you have pretty good grip for control of this bike, which I really like. So at this point in the video, I always talk about who is this bike for and who is it not for, and this is a little more interesting. Obviously, being a used bike, but a fairly expensive used bike, you're kind of looking in that new to used range. Being an electric bike from 2018 technology means that that charge speed is lower. So who is this bike for? From a purely practical point of view, if you have a reasonably short commute and you want to have some fun on that, this is perfect for you. Totally perfect. If you have a weekend riding thing that you go for an hour or two and that's kind of enough riding for you, this is perfect for you. It's not something that I think you should be ready to charge out on the road because of that longer charge time. However, if you are going somewhere and staying for a little bit, you can just plug it into a regular outlet, so you're not looking for, you know, impossible to charge, impossible charging stations, that kind of thing. So that's good. Now, where I think it gets interesting is what this does is it gives you great acceleration in silence. And the weirdest thing about riding this bike is the silence. It's, you know, once you get used to, you know, a normal ride is within your range, you don't even think about range. So then it all comes down to what it's like to ride. Now, I can tell you that when my dad had this bike and I had my Versys 650, Kawasaki Versys 650, we used to swap back and forth and back and forth. And when we went out on the highway, most of the noise I was hearing on my Versys 650, in fact, almost all of the noise at highway speeds, was helmet noise. It was wind noise across the helmet, not bike noise. So in reality, you know, unless you have a really loud bike, you're not listening to some of that noise at higher speeds. What's cool though is zipping around town on this, it is silent. Now, if you think loud pipes save lives, that's a whole other discussion, then this bike isn't for you. But if you love the idea of creeping through town, not disturbing the people that are out on the patio, and what's cool is as you're driving by and walking by, you can, stopped at a stoplight, you can hear the conversations of the patios, the people in the bars at the patios and that kind of thing, the people outside. You can see things and hear things that you can't usually hear on a motorcycle. I think having no noise makes me feel safer because I can hear vehicles around me. Normally I'm only hearing my motorcycle, but now you can hear vehicles approaching. You can kind of, I mean, helmets aren't great for directional sound, but you can hear, you know, regular vehicle coming up and approaching you or sort of near you and that kind of thing, which kind of makes it good. And you never have any doubts about sirens or anything else, horns honking, everything, even just people talking, you can hear them. So that's really cool. The other fun thing is because this thing has, as Zero says, better than Porsche 911 acceleration, sitting there at a stoplight and flying away in complete silence blows people's mind. And if you catch them at the next stoplight, they have no idea what this is. Most people don't even know you can get electric motorcycles, and the ones that you can get, still today in 2024, suck for performance. And this thing is there. So why do mainstream performance motorcycles suck compared to mainstream, or mainstream electric motorcycles suck compared to mainstream electric cars? I think it's a couple things. I don't think they're ready to go there because the prices of batteries have come down. You can, you know, you'll still be building an expensive bike. Maybe they don't think people are going to buy it, but the reality is good electric motorcycles exist right now, and if you buy them used, they're actually the same price as a new one. And when I say used, 3,000 kilometers. Now, the catch you're gonna have to see is there's a huge sticker here that says a 5-year battery warranty. Yes, that's something that you're gonna have to take into consideration. The warranty is that long, but most people have found that these types of batteries last for quite a long time and will have many charge cycles. There will be some battery degradation over time, so if you're hoping to get 200 kilometers every single time, you won't. But this is still a great commuter bike for those that are interested in electric bikes, and there's really no option from KTM, Suzuki, Yamaha, all those brands here. Kawasaki has an electric motorcycle that doesn't even come close to competing with this. It's not even in the same class at all. And there's just nothing else like these Zeros. So these Zeros are worth looking at, especially now that they have them on the used market for lower prices, and it can get into, maybe it can fit your budget. So, cool bike. Love to see more from mainstream manufacturers. Not saying that everything should go EV. I like my gas motorcycle. I drive an electric car. It is what it is. you know, there's interesting things about both. So we'll leave it there. If you're interested in this bike, make sure you swing by McLean Sports. It's available right now. Not always super easy to find, not a ton of them around, but this one's available. And do me a favor, if you're interested in seeing more electric type stuff, that kind of thing, give me a like, because let's face it, I'm gonna take some hate just because I reviewed an electric motorcycle. So if you're a fan of this, you made it this far, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe maybe, we'll see how it goes. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you in the next one.